Have you ever wanted to be the puppet master? If you go into your working folder and open up Puppet Warp 1 and 2, we're going to find out. Let's start with this guy. What is Puppet Warp, Andy? Well, it's a feature that allows you to manipulate a painted subject, like our little dude right there, to bend his arms or maybe even rearrange his hair in almost a vector way. Now, this is a stock character, actually, from a program I use called Anime Studio. And it's kind of fun to work with. He was vector. You could bend him and manipulate him just like a Jurassic Park dinosaur if you wanted to. But now he's flat painted right into Photoshop. If you come over here, I do have him in a separate layer. Now, when we get to this one over here, I'll explain why that is really important for you to do. But if we do have our anime, in this case, in a separate layer, it makes puppet warping actually pretty straightforward. Select the anime layer here, go up to the word Edit on the pull-down menu, and go down to Puppet Warp. Now watch what happens to him. He gets this grid on him. Now you can change the density of the grid here if you want to. You can change the mode right here. You can turn the mesh on or off if you don't want to see it. Let's start by doing this. Come over here and click, say, right about here. Now when you do, you set a pin. Now I'm going to go down to about here and do that again. I'm going to come up to his neck, and I'm going to do one here and put one up here on his head, say right about here. We'll do one on his shoulder right here, one over here, one here, and maybe one down here, and one here. You can have as many or as few of these as you want. Now we will need one probably on his hand, say here, and one here. Once you've established these points, you can then come up and do something, say like this. Come up and grab this one, see how the cursor changes, and move it. But see how it's moving it? It's moving it based on the pins. We can always turn the mesh off. Notice how this one locks in. It's kind of like a joint. So if you have this kind of anime character, you can use Puppet Warp to change it. Let me go ahead and turn that off again for a second. Now if I press undo, you can see how it changes it. Now we can go too far by stretching. If you stay within the parameters of the original image, it can look pretty natural. Let's go into our second one here. Now this one's going to be a little bit more difficult because I've got to pull the bird out of that background, and then I need to eliminate the bird where he used to be in the background. So a couple of steps here. Let's start over here in channels, and I did something to save time. I made an alpha channel selection. To activate it, what we do is we control, that's control in Windows, command on a Mac, click it, and it translates it into a selection. We go back to layers, press control or command on Mac, control in Windows, J. Now what that did is it took the selected area and put it into a separate layer. So we got the bird all by himself in a layer. But if we turn this one off, we still have the bird here. So this is what we're going to do. Go back into channels and control or command, control Windows, command Mac, click it again, make a selection. Let's go back to layers. Go into select and then go down to modify, expand, and expand it about 12 pixels. Watch the edge. Now what we're going to do next, we need a little bit of room around those edges. We're going to make sure we have that selected. Up to the word edit, I love this feature. Fill, content aware. Computer, I want you to get rid of that bird. Now I understand there's nothing behind the bird because it's a two-dimensional photograph. But what I want you to do is look at the surrounding area and figure out what might have been there based on that information and fill it in for me. Usually works pretty good. Now that's not perfect, but it's enough. I needed something back there to do the next step. Go back to layer 1 and turn it on. Well, there's our bird, like he never left. Select him. Go up to the word edit and go down to Puppet Warp one more time. I'm going to put a point right here or a pin, kind of run up the middle. Now again, the pins determine where the joints in the bones are. If we come to this one, maybe I just want to do something very simple. If I go ahead and grab here and just maybe twist his head, just give it a little bit more of a, I'm curious kind of look. Now you can go too far. Okay, that's manipulation. Just want to try to just move his head just a little like that. Now we can come up to our selection tool and then say apply. And I can press the undo key and change it. Now the reason we took him out of here and put him up here and then filled the background is because if we hadn't done that and we moved his head, you'd see the original bird right here. Sometimes you have to play around with it just a little bit to get a different look. Puppet Warp allows you to manipulate paint in almost a vector kind of way. Kind of fun to play around with though.